Hello, everyone. This is Prakash, Professor, Department of ECE, Bharat Institute of Higher Education and Research. Today's course name is ASIC Design, and the topic chosen for this course ASIC Design is Introduction to ICs. So, what do you mean by the acronym of ASIC? It's the acronym is Application Specific Integrated Circuit. As the name indicates, ASIC is a non-standard integrated circuit that is designed for specific use or application. Generally, an ASIC design will be undertaken for a product that will have a large production run, and the ASIC may contain a very large part of the electronics needed on a single integrated circuits. So what you understand from this particular ASIC design is whenever we wanted for some specific purpose, an integrated circuits that should be designed for specific purpose, that is what that type of integrated circuit design is called as the application specific integrated circuit. For example, microprocessor. It is a very generalized processor which will be used in the many computers in the world. So that means that type of integrated circuit design is called as the application specific integrated circuits. That is why we have a large part of electronics needed on a single integrated circuit. So this is basically what we mean by called as the application specific integrated circuits. So this is a little bit introduction about it. And the examples, let us say, a chip for a toy bear that talks. So this is a toy bear, and that is a specific purpose for the toy bear to speak means, to talk means there is a chip designed for it. So that type of chip is called as an application specific ICs, where you have some speech processing, everything built inside the chip. Or a chip for a satellite for doing some specific application that is needed to capture an image, store the image, or to analyze the image. You can have some sort of chip that can be designed for this. It can be anything on the chip. Or a chip designed to handle the interface between the memory and the microprocessor for a workstation CPU. So you will have some memory interface chips that can be serve as an interface between the memory and the microprocessor for a workstation. So that is a specific type of application. So when you design a chip or the integrated circuit for that type of interface circuit, is called as the application specific IC, or a chip containing a microprocessor as a cell together with other logic. So that is also one type of microprocessor. So for example, a microcontroller, which is an application-specific ICs where you have a built-in microprocessor together with programmable peripheral interface chips. So that are also built in. That means then that put together will form as what is called as an application-specific ICs. Now coming to the classification of the application-specific integrated circuits. So the application-specific integrated circuits have got three major classification. First is called as the full custom integrated circuit ICs. Second is called as the semi-custom integrated circuits, and third is called as the programmable integrated circuits. Again, there is a sub-classification in the semi-custom application-specific ICs, which is the standard cell-based, gate array-based. And then in the programmable, we again have some sub-classification, which is the programmable logic devices and field programmable gate arrays. Again, there is a sub-classification under the gate array-based application-specific ICs, which is the channel gate array, channelless gate array, and structured gate array. So in the application-specific ICs, when you have a full, what do you mean by full customers? Full customers where we have to start the design from the basis, from the transistor level. Okay, from the transistor level. For example, say so a full custom IC is one which includes some logic cells that are customized and all the mask plates that are customized. So it is a customized. So based on the customer specification, we try to design the integrated circuit that is called as a full custom application specific ICs. So here, all the logic cells that are in the integrated circuits and the mask layers also will be customized. So everything must be designed in this full custom ASIC. That is what is the meaning of a full custom application specific integrated circuit. So a microprocessor is an example of a full custom ASIC. So designers have to spend many hours squeezing the most out of every last square micron of microprocessor chip space by hand. So this is what meant by the microprocessor, because it is going to be used by many applications. So it is a general purpose application. So in the general purpose integrated circuits, a microprocessor, you have to design the logic cells that are in it, and also the mask layers also has to be customized. So that is what mean by the customized. So this is basically what is called as the full custom ICs. Or in more general terms, customizing all the integrated circuit features in this way allows the designers to include analog circuits, optimized memory cells, or mechanical structures on IC. So for example, full custom ICs are the most expensive to manufacture and to design. So because when you go for a full custom integrated circuits, you have to design all the logic cells that are to be incorporated, that are to be included in the particular integrated circuits, and the manufacturing is also will take a large amount of time and money. So that is why we call it the most expensive to manufacture and design, because we are designing on a customized. We don't have any predefined logic cells that can be taken into the integrated circuits and designed in a faster time or in a less cost. So that is why this is a very expensive in the terms of manufacturing as well as the design aspects. So therefore, the manufacturing lead time, the time required to make an IC, not including the design time, is typically 8 weeks for a full custom IC. So this is what you have to remember. So it takes typically 8 weeks for a full custom IC to be manufactured. So these specialized full custom ICs are often intended for specific application. So we might call some of them as full custom application specific integrated circuits. So in full custom as application specific integrated means the designer avoids using pre-tested and pre-characterized cells for all or part of the design. So usually, whenever if you wanted to reduce the design time or the manufacturing time, we generally use pre-tested logic cells and pre-characterized logic cells to design integrated circuits. But in this full custom IC, everything is being used. Means every logic cells that has been designed has not been pre-tested or pre-characterized. So this might be because existing cell libraries are not fast enough, or the logic cells are not small enough, or consume too much power. So suppose we have pre-designed logic cells means, and if you are trying to fit that same cell libraries into our customized application means, that will not be working fast enough for our application which we are intended to, and that logic cells are not small enough also to consume, or it may consume too much power. So that we not have a customized full custom integrated circuits, we don't use the existing cell libraries because of the following reasons: not fast enough, logic cells are not small enough, or consume too much power. So one has to use a full custom design if the application specific integrated circuit technology is new or specialized, there is or no existing cell libraries, or because the ASIC is so specialized that some circuits must be custom designed. So when you go for example, we said that it is a microprocessor full custom. So when I move on to the next generation of the microprocessor means, then I will definitely have to go for a full custom integrated circuit approach, because the logic cells will be totally different and I cannot use the existing cell libraries, and also it may consume too much power, the existing cell library. So I have to make it as I have to create a new cell libraries in order to design. So this type of approach is called as a full custom integrated circuit control. And semi-custom application-specific integrated circuits. So application-specific integrated circuits for which all the logic cells are pre-designed and some possibly all of the mask layers are customized or called semi-custom application-specific integrated circuits. So what in the semi-custom application-specific ICs, do in the integrated, when they're designing the integrated circuit is they use the pre-designed cells from the cell library and makes the design much easier. So this is a little down from the code. So they use the existing cell libraries to design the integrated circuits for intended application. So because of that, there are two standard approaches for the semi-custom application specific ICs, which is the standard cell-based ASICs and gate array-based ASIC. So standard cell-based ASIC is an ASIC one which uses the predefined logic cells, that is AND gates, OR gates, multiplexes, and flip-flops, known as the standard cells. So these cells are being used in the standard cell-based approach, and one can apply the term. So this is what you mean by the standard cell areas, also called as flexible blocks, or the CBIC, they call it a cell-based integrated CBIC, is called as a CBIC. What has been written in the particular slide here beside is CBIC, is pronounced as CBIC, which is called cell-based integrated circuits, are built of rows of standard cells, like a wall built of bricks. So you will see a wall which is built of bricks. So each brick is called as a cell. So the same thing, that is the analogy that they have brought into for the standard cell-based semi-custom application specific ICs. The standard cell areas may be used in combination with microcontrollers or even microprocessors known as megacells. For example, so this is a typical example of a die showing the semi-custom integrated circuits, where the standard cell area is a flexible block. That is the semi-custom IC approach. It is also integrated with the fixed blocks. So, for example, 2, 3, 4, 5, which are the mega cells, which is using the standard, which is based on the mega cells, which is the full custom blocks or system level macros, functional standard blocks. So this is basically what is called as a cell-based ASIC with a single standard area together with the 4 fixed blocks. So the ASIC designer defines only the placement of the standard cells and the interconnect of the CBIC. Okay. So that is basically what's called. So the mask layers for CBIC are customized and are unique to a particular customer. The advantage of the CBIC is that the designer saves time, money, and reduce risk by using a pre-designed, pre-tested, and pre-characterized standard cell library. So this is the advantages that the semi-custom integrated circuit possesses on the. So the second part of this is the gate array based ASIC. In gate array or the gate array based, the transistors are predefined onto the silicon wafer. So instead of the cell, the transistors are predefined on the silicon wafer. So the predefined pattern of transistors on a gate array is a base array. And the smallest element that is replicated to make the base array is called as the base cell. So what you have to do is you have to just form an interconnection. So this is only the top few layers of it, which define the interconnection between transistors, are defined by the designer using custom response. So what all you have to do, all the transistors are predefined in the silicon chip. Only the designer is to customize the interconnections between these transistors to realize the integrated circuit that he or she needs to design for a certain application. So this is what is called as a gate array based approach. So to distinguish this type of gate array from other gate arrays, it's often called as a masked gate array. It's called as a masked gate array. So the designer chooses from the gate array library of pre-designed and pre-characterized logic cells. The logic cells is a gate array, and the base layer is the base cell layout is the same for each logic, and only the interconnect inside the cells and between the cells is to be customized. So we have the interconnections both at the inside of the cells and between the cells. So you have the predefined logic cells. So between intra-cell connections and the inter-cell connections are required or customized by the designer only. So that is the basic idea of the array. So there are 3 types of masked gate arrays, which is called as the channeled gate array, channel-less gate array, and structured gate arrays. What do you mean by the channel gate array? Means there will be a space between the two rows of the basic logic cells. So here we both use the rows of cells separated by channels used for interconnect. So for example, let's see here. So there is a rows which is given at the base there. So there are 2 rows and in between the space, and that space is used as interconnect to form the base cell arrays. And that interconnection is designed by the by the designer to interconnect between the base cells, and that will form what is the integrated circuit that intended for some specific application. So this is basically what is called as the channeled gate array. And the next type of mask gate array is called as the channelless gate array. The channelless gate array, here there is no space between the base logic cells. So here are already about the only the interconnect is to be customized. So the interconnect uses predefined space between the rows of the base cells. So the manufacturing terms. So here, this is the channelless one. So here you can see from this one, there is no space in between the array of the between the base cells, the rows of the base cells. There is no space. So the basic difference between the channelless gate array and the channeled gate array is that there are no predefined areas set aside for routing between the cells on a channelless gate array. Instead, we route on over the top of the gate array devices. So from this particular diagram, we find there is no space between the rows of the base cells. Whereas in the channel gate array, we find some space between the free space between the, so the interconnection is done in the space between the base cells, but whereas in the channelless gate array, the routing is done on the top of the gate array design, on the gate array. So there is no predefined area set aside for routing between the channels, between the cells on a channelless gate array, whereas there are predefined areas set aside for routing in the channeled gate arrays. So this is what is the structured gate array is already an embedded block is in the upper left corner. So just you have to, so the features is customized block. Here also only the interconnect is customized. Okay, the custom blocks same for each designs can be embedded. So the blocks have been already defined and that can be predefined and that can be included in the gate array based semi-custom integrated circuits. So therefore, the manufacturing lead time is between 2 days and 2 weeks only, whereas for the full customized ICs it is from 8 days to 8 weeks. So this is the difference between the full custom integrated circuits and the semi-custom integrated circuits. An embedded gate array gives the improved area efficiency and increased performance of a cell-based ICs, but with a lower cost and faster turnaround time of an mask gate array. The disadvantage of the embedded gate array is the embedded function is fixed. So that is a basic difference. Programmable logic devices. So already you are going about in a basic digital electronics, the programmable logic device or the standard cells that are available in standard configurations. So you have a programmable AND array, programmable OR array. So these are all the what's called the program logic device. So what all you have to do is you have to just these logic gates must be interconnected using the customized manner. So when you try to interconnect the customized AND array and OR array present in the program logic device, that particular circuit is getting realized in the programmable logic device. So this is one of the what is called as the how you try to design an integrated circuit based on the programmable logic devices. So this is a program logic device where you have the macro cells and there is a programmable interconnect. So this programmable interconnect allows the designer to customize interconnection between the macro cells where you will have the logic gates that are present to it, depending upon the design or the functionality of the integrated circuit, what is to be implemented. That a programmable interconnect by the designer will try to interconnect between the various logic cells, various logic gates present in the macro cell, and you realize the functionality of that device of the integrated circuits for the customer that is he or she is intended to do. So no customized mask layers or logic cells, fast design turnaround, a single large block of programmable interconnect, a matrix of logic macro cells that usually consists of a programmable logics followed by a flip-flop or latch. So the next comes what is called as the field programmable gate array. Field programmable gate array is the newest member of the ASIC family that are rapidly going in replacing TTL in microelectronic systems. Even though an FPGA is a type of gate array, we do not consider the term gate array because ASICs to include FPGA. There is a little difference between the FPGA and PLD. In this field program gate array, we use what is called the combination logic. What's called the combination configuration logic blocks, and then there is a what is called as the input switch matrix. SM is called as the switch matrix, and CLB is called as the configuration logic blocks. So this configuration logic blocks are predefined, and only the designer has to give an interconnection between the different between the configuration logic blocks and between the configuration logic blocks within the configuration logic blocks using the switching matrix. So the designer responsibility is to configure this field programmable gate array for the intended application of the integrated circuits. Okay, that depends on. So this is this gives me a faster turnaround. So the characteristics of the field program gate arrays. None of the mask layers are customized. There is a method for programming the base logic cells and the interconnect. Okay, so you have to give an interconnection between the configuration logic block and within the configuration logic block, such that the customized integrated circuit will be realized. So the core is a regular array of programmer-based logic cells that can be implemented combinational as well as sequential logic flip-flops. So a matrix for programmable interconnect surrounds the base logic cells. The program IO cells surrounds the core. So design turnaround is just only few years. So this is called as on the outer of the circuit. We can see from here there is an IO block. So this is same like an integrated circuit in an integrated circuit form, where only the design has to program the interconnections to realize the integrated circuit functions. Okay. Okay. Well, the next is, what is the ASIC design flow diagram? So the ASIC design flow diagram, what is the steps or the design flow involved in designing the application specific ICs? The first step is the design entry. The first step is the design entry. Is a stage where the micro architecture is to be implemented. Where the micro architecture is to be implemented. So that is the first stage of the design entry, how we are going to implement the microarchitecture. Second step in the ASIC design flow diagram is a logic synthesis. What is a logic synthesis? It's a tool to produce a netlist, a description of the logic cells and their connections. So usually the design entry, the first step of design entry is realized, the microarchitecture is realized using the hardware description language, which is the VHDL or the Verilog. So a hardware description language is used as a starting point for the design entry to specify the microarchitecture that has to be implemented. Second, the logic synthesis is to produce the netlist using the same hardware description language software itself, which is the VHDL or the Verilog hardware description language. So that is basically what is called as the how a synthesis tool. It is a tool to produce a netlist, a description of the logic cells and the connections. And the third step is the system partitioning. So divide a large system into an ASIC sized pieces. So usually we try to partition the system into smaller pieces of the ASIC sizes. That is basically what is called the third step. Okay, the first step is the design entry, second is the logic synthesis, third is the system partitioning, and the fourth is the pre-layout simulation. So what do you mean by the pre-layout size simulation? Means now after entering the design entry of the particular intended integrated circuit that you wanted to design, the functionality of that particular circuit must be checked. That is what is called as a pre-layout simulation. So the pre-layout simulation is to check whether the intended circuit that is functioning properly or not. So for that only we include what is called as the pre-layout simulation. If the functionality is not performing to the expected design of what we have intended to, then we have to redesign. We have to redesign the design entry and do again the logic synthesis and do again the system partitioning, and then again check using the pre-layout simulation the functionality of the intended microchip architecture is performing correctly or not. So if this step is completed, means if the preload simulation is giving the correct functionality of the integrated circuits, then move on to what is called as the floor planning. So floor planning will try to arrange the blocks of the netlist on the chip. So you have created the system partitioning. So you can see from the PPT that on the right hand side of the third there is a B, which is the A and B. That A should be placed, should be arranged. That block A block should be arranged at which place. So that is what is called as the floor planning. So you do a floor planning to arrange the blocks on the arrange the blocks with the netlist on the chip. Then after that, next step is the placement. Placement is the design to the location of the cells in a block, location of the cells in a block. So we have to see to that the placement of the blocks are put in a proper manner so that the efficient use of the silicon wafer is completely utilized in a proper manner. Then finally, routing between the connection between the cells and the blocks. So even after arranging the blocks in the proper manner, then the routing between the blocks must be routing between the cell and the blocks must be done in the 7th step, which is called as the routing. 8th is the extraction. Definitely, there will be a parasitic resistance and parasitic capacitance that can happen after giving the circuit connections between the logic cells. So that is what is called the determining the resistance and capacitance of the interconnect. So this particular because of this interconnect resistance and capacitance, the functionality of the chip may get affected. So we move on to what is called as the post layout simulation. So post layout simulation is used to see whether the design still works with the added loads of the interconnect or not. So that is basically what is called as the post layout simulation. So far what we understood is there are 9 steps involved in the ASIC design flow diagram. In that, the steps number 1, 2, 3 are the logical design part of the ASIC design flow diagram, and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the physical design of the ASIC diagram. So the logical design is only intended to do with the tools that are available for designing ASCII, and the physical design usually uses a manual thing is required to find out the that is the. Next is what is called as the combinational logic circuit. So we have what is called as the AND or AND invert. So already you are familiar with this type of one. We are going to after this, the next slide will just show you how the transistorized level implementation of this AND or invert is being implemented in the ASIC design. For example, if you have a combination logic cell which is called as AND or NOT, AND or invert is A dot B or with C dot E. Okay, that is then invert the whole thing. So in the Boolean expression for this particular logic cell, combination logic cell is A dot B or with C dot D and complement of this or invert. That is what the bubble indicates the invert. That is what is called AND or. Similarly, for the or and invert, we have the Boolean expression as A or B plus C dot. That is like A dot B plus C dot D plus E, right? And then you have to invert it. So first all the functionalities of variables, Boolean variables A, B, C, D, E, F, then invert and it together. That is B plus C, and D plus E. That is the OR functionality. And B plus C dot D plus E is called as the AND function, and over that you complement it. That is called as the OR and invert. That is basically what is called as combination logic cell. So this is the typical logic cell implementation. How the transistor level implementation, how the networks, the serial path networks or transistor comes into picture. So you can see from the left diagram that is A dot B. So here the OR functionalities are in a parallel. The PMOS transistor. This is a CMOS implementation. Therefore, there will be a P array and N array of MOS transistors. So the P cells are arranged in parallel for the OR gate implementation, and for the AND gate implementation, the P transistors are to be arranged in series manner. Whereas for the NMOS transistors, the OR gate will be arranged in parallel, and the AND gate will be arranged in series connections. So that is what you see from this particular diagram. So you can see that A and B, which is to be connected in OR functionality, it will be connected in the PMOS in a parallel manner, whereas in the NMOS transistor, it will be connected in series manner. That is in series manner. So that is basically what is referred as the OR in parallel, that is A and C, A and B and C and D. So then we do a sizing of which is the 6:1 is called as the aspect ratio, which is called as the W by L aspect ratio of the W by L aspect ratio in order for the sizing of the transistor to take place, so that equal delay will be taking place between the PMOS or the functionality of the circuit. This will be properly implemented. That is, and or input will be implemented in the this basic. This is what can be called as the. Next is the very important one is the transmission gate logic. Okay, the transmission gate logic. So we shows the TG and TX or the gate, pass gate and the coupler. Okay, the TGX and the we connect a P-channel transistor to transmit a strong one. Okay, we connect a P-channel transistor to transmit a strong one in parallel with the N-channel transistor to transmit a strong 0. So usually the N-channel transistor will pass a strong 0 and a weak 1, whereas the P-channel transistor will pass a strong 1 and a weak 0. Because of the potential drops that will happen when you try to pass a logic 1 in the N-channel transistor, the potential drops, so the output will not be a strong 1 at the output of the transmission gate. So that is why this particular configuration gives you a strong 1 and strong 0. That is why the transmission gate is allowed to, that's why the transmission gate is designed for transmitting either logic 1 or the logic 0. For example, if you say that my the select signal S is equal to logic 1 means then both the transistor will be enabled. That is the NMOS transistor and the PMOS transistor. So the bubble on the gate indicates it is a PMOS transistor, and when there is no bubble on the gate terminal of the NMOS, so that is we call it this is called the NMOS, right? So this NMOS is, you don't have a bubble, that is called NMOS. We have a bubble, that is called the PMOS transistor. So when you have a logic 1, that transistor will be enabled, and this is an inverted report. So the PMOS, when the logic 0, the PMOS transistor will be turned on. So when this is done, then depending upon the logic input, whether it's 0 or 1, that will be transferred from the A to the Z output. That is the input to the output. So this is basically what is called as the transmission gate logic. So transistor is a resistor. Next is a transistor is a resistor. So a CMOS transistor inverter with the load capacitance and V in input. So if you look at the particular diagram, the V transistor, what happens here is when the input voltage is equal to 0 and the output will be VDD, because when input voltage is 0 means this transistor will be, the PMOS transistor will be enabled and the N transistor will be NMOS transistor will be turned off, because we need a positive voltage to turn on the PMOS transistor. So therefore, all the voltage will be dropped across the load, so that way the output voltage will be VDD. Then as we increase the input voltage, when it increases up to a maximum of VDD, what happens? This transistor, the PMOS transistor is turned off, and this transistor is turned on, and the discharge will take place from the capacitor to the ground, and therefore the output will get reduced to 0 voltage. So because of this, there is the two types of delays we are calling it. It's called as the propagation delay, which is called as the Pauli propagation delay. So the Pauli propagation delay is nothing from the output trip point 0.5. Okay, so the measured from the input trip point 0.5, and the output trip point is measured from the Pauli from the 0.35 and 0.65. So then there is two types of resistance are present in the transistor, which is called as the R pull-up resistor and R pull-down resistor, and there is a parasitic output capacitance, and there is a inverter input capacitance C. There is input capacitance C. Now let's get into what is called the transistor capacitance. There are different types of capacitance present in the MOS type of transistors. So you can understand from here where this is called as the junction capacitance. So junction capacitance between the substrate, that is between this is called as the G. For example, let's say the source, right? So this is called as SB. The source it's called as the source base substrate. Then there is then this is called as the junction. This is called as the drain capacitance, and there is an overlap capacitance, which is called as the overlap, because the small area, okay, the small area of the gate terminal is overlapped with the junctions between the junction. So it's called the overlap capacitance of the drain terminal, and there's overlap capacitance at the source terminal. And this is called as the oxide capacitance or the gate capacitance, and this is called as the depletion capacitance. So these are the various transistor capacitance present in the MOS transistors. The first is called as the source base capacitance, which is the base substrate. Between the source and the substrate, there will be a capacitance, and between the drain and the substrate there will be a capacitance. So this is called a CBS and CTB. So this is called as a CBD and CBS consists of two parts. Okay, this is what called as the, and so there is an overlap capacitor accounts for the lateral diffusion of the amount of this one. Not all versions use the equivalent capacitance. So this is about the what is called as the transistor capacitance. It's already mentioned to you. This is called as fixed gate capacitance, which is C0, and this the variation depletion capacitance, that is the formed by the depletion region that extends under the gate. That is the depletion region that is extending under the gate. Okay, thank you.